We have now understood the first part of the Einstein's code about compound interest. So the code was those who understand it earn it, and those who don't pay it. Now we understand the first part. We want to understand the second part as well. What does he mean by those who don't understand it pay it? So in this scenario, I want you to consider an example. Imagine that you want to buy an apartment and you want to get a loan from a bank, a mortgage loan. You're going to get a loan of the amount of 3 million kroners from a bank. And then you're going to put down the rest, which is 530,000 kroner. And then you're going to buy an apartment with a value of almost 3.5 million kroner. If you have an interest rate of 4.34%, which was a quite normal number in 2024, in 2025 now that number is lower, and if you have a mortgage duration of 50 years, how much money do you think in total you will return to the bank? So keep in mind, you are getting a loan of 3 million kroners. After all of your payments of 50 years of paying down that loan, how much money in total do you think you will return to the bank? So please pause this video for a second and pick one of the options that exist on the right hand side. I'm going to move my camera so you can look at the options. So the answer to that question is after 50 years of paying down your mortgage, you will return 6.2 million kroners back to your bank. That means you will pay your bank 2.1x the amount that you borrowed. And this is exactly the second part of the code about compound interest. If you look at the graph on the bottom left, you see a similar curve. So the red curve that you see here is the total amount that you're going to pay to your bank. Pay attention, this is extremely similar to the graph that we had for compound interest. The only difference is that it's the opposite way. So it's a very similar thing. So remember, we assumed we are gonna get 8% interest when we invest. In this scenario, we are paying 4.34% in interest when we pay money back to our bank. So it's exactly the same concept. You are paying compound interest back to the bank. So it's the exact same graph, but it's working against you instead of working for you. So every loan that has an interest rate is essentially compound interest working against you. Now we want to understand what types of loans exist in general. So you may be familiar with a bunch of these, right? First one, which we have here, is credit cards. We talked about that. So credit cards are a promise to pay something down the line to a financial institution or to whoever gives you that credit or that loan, right? Any type of credit, a credit card, buy now, pay later, anything in that realm falls under the category of credit and loans, like credit loans essentially, right? Then you have mortgage loans, which we talked about. It's for when you buy an apartment or a house. You have car loans. Again, I brought up the buy now, pay later because that's quite important, because that is a way that like companies usually disguise giving you credits in a way that is slightly different than a regular credit card. And personal loans or any other types of loans that you can imagine. So any type of loan that at some point will charge you interest, as we said, is compound interest working against you. There is a caveat here that most buy now, pay later options, they actually give you an option to break down your payment with no interest. Right? So everyone would say, okay, then there's no problem. I'm not paying down interest, so that is not a bad thing to do. And that is a much larger discussion that we can have like later on. But the idea there is once you get used to the idea of paying a piece of money, it's amount of money that you don't own right now, that is a slippery slope. that is quite dangerous, because as soon as you miss one of those payments, then the interests are going to kick in. And then depending on how much you can actually keep up with the payments, you might actually dig a huge hole for yourself. So even though the breakdown of payments into 4 installments without any interest doesn't seem that harmful, the idea that I'm spending a money that I don't have right now is quite a dangerous one. So be careful of that. In order to give you an idea of how bad a credit card is, we are going to give you a hypothetical example. So imagine, in this particular scenario, Klarna charges you 21.9% if you use their financing services. So if you don't pay your first 4 installments, then the interest is going to kick in, and that's going to apply on your money that you borrow. If the same amount of interest would have applied on your mortgage, which is a completely imaginary scenario. This is never going to happen. This is very, very exaggerated. This is just to show you the effect of what does this interest rate means. If the same interest rate applied to your mortgage in the exact example that we had before, borrowing 3 million from a bank, you would have to return 19.5 million kroners back to your bank. That is 6.5 times the amount that you borrowed. Again, this is a scenario that would never happen. A mortgage would never go that high, hopefully. So this is just to show you it does not matter the interest amount. Like, nevertheless, it's compound interest working against you. Of course, if the interest rate is higher, you are paying way more back to the bank. If it's lower, you are paying less. But regardless of that, you're still having compound interest work against you. So you are on the second part of the code from Einstein.